Hey, today was Easter, and because it's Easter, I have a really unstructured day. I'm realizing how difficult it is to stay on track and do things that are going to push me towards my goals on days that are unstructured. And I've realized that on days that I'm not in my normal routine, I fall back and it's hard to get around to doing the things. That's why sometimes you see the videos late at night. But consistency is the important thing. And getting to the goals is the biggest hack that I've found is if you just focus on doing the actions instead of the goal, you're gonna eventually get to the goal. So you just have to be doing the thing so long that it's unreasonable that you wouldn't have reached that goal by then. And you can literally do that by backtracking from wherever the goal is. Okay, there's this person that makes millions of dollars annually. So what do they do on the daily basis to get to there? What does their day look like? And you see this recurring trend, which is they work out, they work on the business but that's not realistic for people with jobs. And so it's really difficult because if you have a 9 to 5, but then you also have a family and you have to balance all these things, it becomes a really, really challenging balancing act. And we get to vote what's most important in our lives by how we spend our minutes. The thing though is that a lot of people waste their minutes. There's this really cool analogy, which is if you got $10 million, would you take it? Yes. If the caveat was you would die tomorrow, you wouldn't wake up in the morning, you wouldn't take it. Which means that day is worth, the time you have in a single day is worth more than $10 million. But because of that, that limited amount of time you have each day, you have to pick and choose what the most important things are. And so really time blocking out and keeping a structured day is the best way to navigate that and make sure you're actually spending your time on the things you want to, instead of getting sucked into watching YouTube shorts or Instagram reels for 2 hours. Because let's be honest, Instagram reels aren't that important when we can't really remember what we even watched when we're done. And that's kind of the picture of everyone on those short videos, that's their one and only goal. Keep you mesmerized as long as possible. And so you have to really truly avoid that and structure your day in a way that it's just not possible to do that. You don't have any downtime to kill to do that. You need to vote specifically and be really mindful about what you spend your time doing. And so going forward with if you just do the actions, you'll eventually hit the goal anyways. Eventually it's going to get boring, right? You do something long enough, you're going to get good. And after you get good, it becomes monotonous. It becomes work suddenly. Instead of constantly learning these new things because it's a fresh field, you actually start to get good. But that means it starts to get boring because you're just doing the same things that you had to learn before. And that's the key indicator that you need to keep going, because this is where you're going to actually see results of all the skills that you've been conglomerating, because now you know all these things. It's why do I want to keep doing this? I know all this. But that's just human nature. We like new, we like novelties. And if you really rich people tend to live boring lives. Oh, you mean you work 10 hours a day? Yeah. And then I get in my free time, which is, little, I get to do whatever the heck I want because I have as much money as I need. And so, being able to trick your brain essentially into doing those boring actions is wildly underrated. If you're able to figure out a way to mold your environment or give yourself rewards so that you want to keep constantly checking things, then you're going to do good. I actually did this when I was going to college, which was I got to see when the grades posted regularly, and I kind of made it into a ritual of like checking. Like I could see if I turned something in within like 2 to 3 days, the teacher is going to have it graded. What did that do? I would turn something in, and then I wouldn't do anything for a day, but like on day 2 and 3, I would log into my school account. I would do some school, and then I would check to see did the grade appear like I expect it to, and whether it did or it didn't matter. I was already logged into the school, and like it's really easy for me to just continue to do my assignments or study whatever I need to study. And so that's one interesting example of like the way that I tricked myself into doing something, like doing the action that's necessary. If you want to be a top student, get a 4.0 or graduate with honors, you have to trick your brain into liking doing the school, like doing the work. And so it's not just figuring out ways to make yourself want to do it. It's also molding your environment. So like that's there's 2 ways to do this. Way one is like make the work that you're doing more fun than anything else, which is the trick your brain into giving you dopamine for working. That's a great way to do it, but that's saying that there's still these distractions around. You could go the opposite way. Like the work can be horrid and you could hate it, but if you eliminate every other possible thing to do, so that like the only other thing to do is like sit and watch paint dry, or do the thing that's like hard that you don't like, you're probably going to do the thing that's hard that you don't like, or maybe you'll sit and watch paint dry for an hour until you're bored, and then guess what? You'll do the thing that you've been avoiding. And so it's not even necessarily just tricking your brain into the dopamine. Like you could shape your environment in a way that like the most entertaining thing to do is going to be something that's like not necessarily engaging. And so there's this like evolution, which is like when you start something, it's very difficult to get in the habit of it. Once you get in the habit of it, like great, you're good for a while. Because you're building skills, it's engaging, but then it gets boring, and it got boring because you got good, and that's when you need to double down, and that's when you need to pull in these other tricks of like, how can I make this an activity that like I really enjoy? The best sports players are people who love the game, and the reason they're the best sports players is because they love the game. It's like a really interesting dichotomy. The more you love the game, the more you're going to do it, the more you're going to practice. And guess what? The better you're going to get. And it's like this super positive cycle. And so if you can figure out a way to get yourself in that cycle, whether it be removing everything else or figuring out a way to like give yourself a treat or something. Like one example of like, I don't like working out, but the way that I force myself to do that is like, well, there's like I can lose weight one of 2 ways. Either I can not eat or I can work out. And so I'm like, okay, well, I don't get to eat today until I work out. And that will eventually force me, like my hunger will force me to be like, okay, I'm hungry, so let me work out real quick so that I can eat. And that's like a really good way of taking something that's uncomfortable and pitting up against something that's more uncomfortable, which would be hunger. And so like being able to figure out little hacks to force yourself into doing things, like you're going to be way better off. And you don't even have to focus on the goals if you do that. You just do the actions. A bodybuilder works out every day. So if you can figure out a way to make yourself work out every day, eventually you're going to get, ripped. And like that's like wildly underrated in my opinion. Just figure out ways to make yourself be consistent. Consistency is key. If you're consistent, you're going to win. That's all I got. Thanks for watching.